It says in the Bhagavad-gita that those who study the sacred conversation between he and his devotee Arjuna worship the Supreme Lord with their intelligence. So I'd like to read from the 8th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, the final verse, text 28. The Sanskrit reads, Vedeshu, Yageshu, Tapeshu, Chaiva, Daneshu, Yat Punya Phalam Pradishtam, Adyeti Tat Sarvam Idam Viditva, Yogi Param Shtanu Paiti Chadyam. So please repeat. Vedeshu,
Vedeshu,
in the study of the Vedas. Yagyeshu,
Yagyeshu,
in the performances of yagya, or sacrifice. Tapeshu,
Tapeshu,
in undergoing different types of austerities. Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Eva,
Eva,
certainly.
certainly.
Daneshu,
Daneshu,
in giving charities.
in giving charities.
Yat,
Yat,
that which.
that which.
Punya phalam,
Punya phalam,
result of pious work.
result of pious work.
Pradishtam,
Pradishtam,
indicated.
indicated.
Adyeti,
Adyeti,
surpasses.
surpasses.
Tat sarvam,
Tat sarvam,
all those.
all those.
Idam,
Idam,
this.
this.
Viditva,
Viditva,
knowing.
knowing.
Yogi,
Yogi,
the devotee.
devotee.
Param,
Param,
supreme.
supreme.
Sthanam,
Sthanam,
abode.
abode.
Upayati,
Upayati,
achieves.
achieves.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Adyam,
Adyam,
original.
original.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas or performing austere sacrifices, giving charity or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end he reaches the supreme, eternal abode. Purport. This verse is the summation of the 7th and 8th chapters, which particularly deal with Krishna consciousness and devotional service. One has to study the Vedas under the guidance of the spiritual master and undergo many austerities and penances while living under his care. A brahmachari has to live in the home of the spiritual master just like a servant, and he must beg alms from door to door and bring them to the spiritual master. He takes food only under the spiritual master's order, and if the master neglects to call the student for food that day, the student fasts. These are some of the Vedic principles for observing brahmacharya. After the student studies the Vedas under the master for a period from 5 to 20 years, he may become a man of perfect character. Study of the Vedas is not meant for the recreation of armchair speculators, but for the formation of character. After this training, the brahmachari is allowed to enter into householder life and marry. When he is a householder, he has to perform many sacrifices so that he may achieve further enlightenment. He must also give charity according to the country, time, and candidate, discriminating among charity in goodness, in passion, and in ignorance, as described in Bhagavad-gita. Then, after retiring from household life, upon accepting the order of vanaprastha, he undergoes severe penances, living in forests, dressing with tree bark, not shaving, etc. By carrying out the orders of brahmacharya, householder life, vanaprastha, and finally sannyas, one becomes elevated to the perfectional stage of life. Some are then elevated to the heavenly kingdoms, and when they become even more advanced, they are liberated in the spiritual sky, either in the impersonal Brahmajyoti or in the Vaikuntha planet, or Krishna Loka. This is the path outlined by Vedic literatures. The beauty of Krishna consciousness, however, is that by one stroke, By engaging in devotional service, one can surpass all the rituals of the different orders of life. The words idam vididva indicate that one should understand the instructions given by Sri Krishna in this chapter and the 7th chapter of Bhagavad-gita. One should try to understand these chapters not by scholarship or mental speculation, but by hearing them in association with devotees. Chapters 6 through 12 are the essence of Bhagavad-gita. The first 6 and the last 6 chapters are like coverings for the middle 6 chapters, which are especially protected by the Lord. If one is fortunate enough to understand Bhagavad-gita, especially these middle 6 chapters in the association of devotees, then his life at once becomes glorified beyond all penances, sacrifices, charities, speculations, etc. One can achieve all the results of these activities simply by Krishna consciousness. One who has a little faith in Bhagavad-gita should learn Bhagavad-gita from a devotee, because in the beginning of the 4th chapter it is stated clearly that Bhagavad-gita can be understood only by devotees. No one else can perfectly understand the purpose of Bhagavad-gita. One should therefore learn Bhagavad-gita from a devotee of Krishna, not from mental speculators. This is a sign of faith. When one searches for a devotee and finally gets a devotee's association, one actually begins to study and understand Bhagavad-gita. By advancement in the association of the devotee, one is placed in devotional service, and this service dispels all one's misgivings about Krishna or God, and Krishna's activities, form, pastimes, name, and other features. After these misgivings have been perfectly cleared away, one becomes fixed in one's study. Then one relishes the study of Bhagavad-gita and attains the state of feeling always Krishna conscious. In the advanced stage, one falls completely in love with Krishna. This highest perfectional stage of life enables the devotee to be transferred to Krishna's abode in the spiritual sky, Goloka Vrindavan, where the devotee becomes eternally happy. Thus end the Bhakti-yoga purports to the 8th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad-gita in the matter of attaining the Supreme. The verse again, Vedeshu yagyeshu tapishu chaiva daneshu yapunya palam pradishtam Bhageti tat sarve idam vididva yogi param shtanam paiti chati. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing austere sacrifices, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service he attains all these, and at the end he reaches the supreme eternal abode. Ukam karoti vachalam pagam manayate grinya pripatadaham mande Sri Gurun Dinatana. So, Srila Jiva Goswami, whom Srila Prabhupada says is the greatest Vaishnava philosopher, means he is the greatest philosopher of all philosophers. But among Vaishnavas, there are many great philosophers, but Srila Jiva Goswami is outstanding. So he has written a very extensive commentary on many of the Vedic scriptures, and especially the Srimad Bhagavatam, which contains the complete Vedic knowledge, especially synthesized for devotees of Krishna. In other words, just by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, then one can obtain all Vedic knowledge that is necessary to understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And this Bhagavad-gita, this is the same knowledge, but you might say like dictionary. Srimad Bhagavatam is like encyclopedia. So, Jiva Goswami has said, out of all the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, 18,000 verses, he said that the whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness is expressed in one verse. Sometimes we want to know, okay, so many verses, so many books, so give me something very basic and simple where I can understand the whole thing. But Jiva Goswami said there's one verse, and this is from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Vadanti tat tatva vidas yajnanam advayam rameti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. that the supreme truth, Vadanti Tat Tattva, means there are these Vedantist philosophers who are researching all the Vedas to find out what is this tattva, what is this truth that the Vedas are expressing. So, Jiva Goswami has said that this tattva is understood by these philosophers in three ways. And yet, this tattva remains one. It is advayam. It is one thing. But depending on who is understanding, it may be seen in three ways. So, Brahmeti means as impersonal Brahma. Some great sages, rishis, they will describe the truth of the Vedas like that. It is impersonal Brahma. Others will speak of Paramatma, Lord Vishnu, who is situated in the heart of all living beings. Also Paramatma refers to this, the universal form, Vishvarup Swarupam. This is including all living entities in this universe, collectively, super soul. They're all soul, and Krishna is the collective soul, super soul. And then there is Bhagavan. So Bhagavan means Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is full of 6 Aishwaryas or opulences. He has all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, all renunciation. So why is it said like this, that there are 3 ways of understanding one absolute truth? So this is because in the Vedas, this is confirmed by Srila Prabhupada in the 3rd chapter. We have it right here. I turned right to it. Text 16. It's not right here. Anyway, Srila Prabhupada makes the statement in the 3rd chapter. Oh, here it is. Yes. By nature's law, this human form of life is specifically meant for self-realization in either of the 3 ways, namely Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, or Bhakti-yoga. So these are the 3 paths that are outlined in the Vedas. And according to the path one takes, so each one of these paths has its authorities. And according to the path one takes, then one will realize this one absolute truth in 3 ways. So those who follow the path of karma, Srila Prabhupada mentions in a purport, also in the 3rd chapter, that the karma yoga, or that means varnashram dharma, and Srila Prabhupada has mentioned in this purport we just read some of this ashram dharma, brahmachari, grihastha, householder, vanaprastha, sannyasa. So one who follows this varnashram dharma, then he will attain the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, because it is stated in Vishnu Purana that the purpose of varnashram dharma is to please Lord Vishnu. So karma yoga or varnashram dharma, it is the Vedic social system. So karma means work. So it is very much concerned with duties, the occupational duties of the human being, that they're done nicely, they're done properly, and that the sacrifices, yajnas, are made nicely. In this way one becomes purified, and one realizes his relationship with Paramatma. This, for many of the more materialistic followers of Varnashram Dharma, this will mean that they will have relationship with this universal form. This Mahapurush universal form. Many of the Vedic sacrifices are addressing this universal form, Vishva Atma, the soul of the universe. And these social orders are said to, this Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. They come out of this universal form. Brahmanas are the heads, Kshatriyas are the arms, Vaishyas the belly, Shudras the legs and feet. And also the planetary systems that one may attain by following Varnashram Dharma. They're also situated on this universal form. So in this way, by following Karma Yoga, one can realize Paramatma. If one follows Varnashram Dharma under the direction of great acharyas like, for instance, Ramanujacharya, he has, or Madhvacharya also, they have taught the Vaishnava Dharma in terms of Varnashram Dharma. So those who follow in this way, they can go to Vaikuntha Loka and realize Lord Narayan, four-handed, the original four-handed form in the spiritual world. So this, you can say, is the perfection of Varnashram. Then, now this is interesting when you think about this, because Varnashram or Karma Yoga is concerned with collective activities. It is social. So as I said, there's rules and regulations for social order as a whole. So then, but opposed to that, there are those who are very much concerned with the individual. This is going on in modern society. There are those who are very much pursuing collective well-being. The socialists, or those who are very much proposing some kind of social system. So their view is collective, including everyone. Everyone has to be in their place and working, and the whole society has to advance. But then always opposed to them, there's some people who are saying, I don't care for society, I want my individual well-being. So sometimes there's great conflict. So this is another feature of human nature. So the Vedas have something for them too. That's Jnana Yoga. Karma, Jnana. So Jnana Yoga is extremely individualistic. And they realize this feature of Brahmajyoti, the ultimate in selfishness. Spiritual selfishness, which is actually it culminates in extinction of the self. Two ways of looking at it. You can either say the self becomes extinguished, or the self becomes completely identified with God, so that, one gets such an ego. So it seems contradictory, but it's not. Ultimately, it's the same thing. So in Jnana Yoga, then one withdraws from society. One gives up his position. Generally, in this Varnashram system that Prabhupada outlined in the purport, this happens at the sannyas stage, the last stage. Sannyas stage, one is supposed to become spiritually realized through austerities, discipline, completely with it. Sannyas means civil dead man. He has no position in society. He drops out of society completely. So sannyas, still in India, is identified with this realization of impersonal Brahma. Of course, not Vaishnava sannyas, but ordinary sannyas. So this is highly individualistic. Now, both of these, the Karma Yoga and the Jnana Yoga, they're very much concerned with what is called by Krishna in the second chapter of Bhagavad-gita, Nirahara. Nirahara means negative restrictions. One has to, in the Karma Yoga practice, Varnashram practice, avoid sinful activities. And if there are sinful activities, then one has to do penance, prayashchitta, to get rid of the reaction. There are so many rules and regulations. Actually, it's infinite. There's such scriptures as Manu Samhita, which is simply laws for a human being to follow. Intricate laws. So they spend their whole day, straining their water so that no little insects will go into it. Because if they drink, then some little bug goes, then that's another sin, and then they have to light a fire or something and do a prayaschita because I drank a bug. So this is negative restriction. And then in the Jnana Yoga also, so many negative restrictions. Their whole process is based on negativity in Jnana Yoga. Neti, neti, not this, not this. Because they negate all names, form, variety, activity of the material existence entirely. Make it void. Nullify it. And then the only thing that's left is this shining light of Brahma Jyoti. And then they merge their consciousness into that. So now they're following these negative restrictions and they're realizing the absolute truth as Paramatma or as Brahman, but they're not realizing the complete absolute truth. The complete absolute truth is Krishna. Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. This is very important because this Sat means eternality. That corresponds with Brahman. That is the feature of Brahman, the impersonal Brahman. It is eternal. One who enters impersonal Brahman, he attains eternality. And then Paramatma is Chit, knowledge, direction, the direction of all conditioned souls in the universe. This Paramatma is doing. So that's another feature, but not total feature. What is missing from these two, Sat and Chit, or Brahman, Paramatma? It is Ananda, bliss. So that is Krishna. So Krishna is described, Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Means the Sat is there in Krishna. Eternality is there in Krishna. And knowledge is there in Krishna. But also Ananda, bliss, spiritual bliss. Vigraha, form. Krishna has a form. As we see, there's one nice picture of Radha and Krishna, new one. Here they look like eternal teenagers. So, blissful form, which is eternal and full of all knowledge. So the Isopanishad says, Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam. That God, Krishna, the Absolute Truth, He is Purnam. He is a complete whole. So all of that Sat Chit that is within Him. But also, He manifests from Himself other complete states. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Punat Puram Udachyate. Like the Brahma Jyoti. That's a feature. So that is completely impersonal. That is a feature of Krishna that is completely impersonal. Just like, persons can also act impersonally. I think you have a lot of experience of that in Sweden. Very expert. Although they're persons, they can act very expert in acting impersonally. So, what is this? Where does this tendency come from? It comes from Krishna originally, because Krishna has his completely impersonal feature, as Brahma Jyoti. And then there is Paramatma feature, the knowledge potency. Just like, again, we see persons in this world, they're maybe philosophers, scientists, so they suspend all the, what you might call normal human activities. They never go to parties, they never, I remember seeing an interview with one young boy, 16, 17, 18 years old, something like that. He was still in his teens. But he was a mathematical genius. So, although he was so young, he was already in some high position in a big university. And he was performing mathematical problems like anything, all these numbers across the chalkboard. And he had big, thick glasses. And this was his whole life. And then the reporter was asking him, so besides mathematics, what do you do? Don't you go to parties? Don't you meet girls? And he what? He couldn't even relate to it. What the reporter was going, what? No, I'm just doing my mathematics. So we see people like that also, completely absorbed in knowledge. So Krishna has that feature too. But it is not the complete, although it is complete impersonalism or complete knowledge, it is not completely Krishna. So in Krishna there is ananda, bliss. So now, I have mentioned that in karma and jnana, they're following this nirahara, negative restrictions, in order to attain their goal, to come to Paramatma, Brahman or Paramatma realization. And there's no ananda. So, they're not tasting spiritual bliss. They're restraining their senses to maintain the realization they have. So that means that they can still be attacked by Maya. Maya can make her presentation of so-called bliss, illusory happiness, sense gratification. And persons, although they may be situated in Brahman consciousness or Paramatma consciousness, they can still fall down to Maya's attraction. But Krishna consciousness is operating on this ananda principle. You see, just like our guests when they come to the temple, now you see devotees, if you become acquainted with the lifestyle of devotees, then you'll know that devotees are also following rules and regulations. There are also some restrictions are there. No meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. And so sometimes people think, oh, this is very hard life, austere life. But no, Krishna calls in 2nd chapter the rules and regulations of bhakti-yoga, the yoga of devotion, which is aiming at this ananda feature, Krishna. These are the regulative principles of freedom from selfishness. We can just look at that verse. It's in the 2nd chapter. Very nice verse. Raga Desha Vimuktayistu Vishayam Indriyascharan Atma Vashaya Vidhyayatma Prasadamadi. But a person free from all attachment and aversion, Raga Dvesha, and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom, can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. Then in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, it is already explained that one may externally control the senses by some artificial process, but unless the senses are engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is every chance of a fall. Although the person in full Krishna consciousness may apparently be on the sensual plane, because it is being Krishna conscious, he has no attachment to sensual activities. The Krishna conscious person is concerned only with the satisfaction of Krishna and nothing else. This is a very important point. Therefore, he is transcendental to all attachment and detachment. If Krishna wants, the devotee can do anything which is ordinarily undesirable, and if Krishna does not want, he shall not do that which he would have ordinarily done for his own satisfaction. Therefore, to act or not to act is within his control because he acts only under the direction of Krishna. This consciousness is the causeless mercy of the Lord, which a devotee can achieve in spite of his being attached to the sensual platform. So this is a very, very profound point that Srila Prabhupada is making. Because those who are on the path of karma or jnana, they're completely obsessed with the self. You see, this is the meaning of this raga dvesha, attachment and aversion. When we're obsessed with the self, then we think, our mind tells us that there are some things that are good for us, good for our happiness. And we become attached to those things. And then there are other things which are bad. They oppose our happiness. And this is even seen on the karma and jnana path. They're attached. The karmis, those on the karma path, become attached to their rituals and attaining the rewards of their rituals, going to heavenly planets. This has been described by Krishna. And then those who are on the jnana path, their problem is the dvesha, the opposite, not attachment, but the fear of attachment. That's why Krishna says, Vita, Raga, Vaya, Krodha. In order to really become advanced, one has to give up this raga, attachment, and Vaya, fear. This fear makes us into impersonalists. So actually these jnanis, that's their underlying principle, fear. So this is because they're absorbed in their self, their own self. Karma means, as I was explaining, the collective self. It's a social system, so they're very much concerned with social duties. And jnanis with their individual self. But they're obsessed with the self. But the bhakti principle puts aside this whole thing with the self. And it's Krishna. Don't worry about yourself. You serve Krishna. So Krishna becomes the center. And as I said, Krishna, he's embodying this ananda feature. So to surrender to Krishna is blissful. And to follow the rules and regulations of bhakti-yoga, service to Krishna, that is blissful. Yenatma suprasiddhi, that satisfies the self. Actually, you see, we're all blissful right now. Because this Sat Chit Ananda, this is also, to a very tiny degree, it's there in the soul. These are also the three features of the soul. We are part and parcel of Krishna. We're all His eternal servants. So we have these same features within us. So bliss is already there. But the whole problem is that our obsession with ourself, and we may be identifying this self, this Atma, or self. We may think it means this gross physical body, so we're obsessed with that, with this body. Or it may be the mind, or it may be the intellect. But these are all false understandings of the self. Or it may even be the soul. The soul apart from the body, which is the beginning understanding of spiritual life. But until we come to the point of Krishna consciousness, we cannot actually understand what is this ananda, what is this spiritual bliss. So bhakti yoga means to put aside selfish concerns and just become concerned for Krishna. Even in this material existence, material world, you have some experience how you can attain some relative material happiness by simply putting aside your normal concerns for yourself. I can give some different examples. Srila Prabhupada always said that the highest material pleasure is sex. So now in our normal life, you see we're all dressed up very nicely and we're doing our duties with some self-consciousness, some dignity, and we think of ourselves as very respectable ladies and gentlemen. So, but in order to experience this sex pleasure, all of that has to be thrown out the window. The sex pleasure means, for instance, these clothes have to be removed. So now, in any other circumstance, if you're downtown here in Sweden and you see someone walking down the street without clothes, you think this is a madman. You think this person is crazy. Because we say this person has no concern for himself. He has no concern. He doesn't care what people think about him. He must be crazy. Lock him up. Get him off the street. But for enjoying this sex pleasure, then of course, then everyone becomes, in that sense, mad. Of course, that's a pretty extreme example, but there's other examples. You can even say eating, for instance. Eating is also a sort of strange activity, if you study it. Pushing things into your face and chomping away. That's also not so dignified. But when eating, we forget about ourselves. You just eat. And because everything else is concerned, all of our other concerns are forgotten, we experience some pleasure. Or even something very simple like watching television. Even in that, one has to forget oneself. One becomes what they call couch potato. Big potato sitting on a couch. And that way you can somehow enjoy the television. Can be no distractions, that's the point. No external distractions. It's full surrender to the idiot box. And then you derive whatever pleasure that idiot box has to offer. Of course, these examples of pleasure, they're material, so it's actually simply cheating. These kind of pleasures one gets through watching TV or eating, of course not prasadam, so eating boga, unoffered food stuff, or up to the ultimate material pleasure, sex life. These activities, they're limited, these pleasures are limited, they're temporary, and they bind the consciousness to the body. That means they lead to pain in the future. The sensualists, those who become very much absorbed in bodily enjoyment, maybe when they're young they enjoy these pleasures, but when they get old they suffer very much. So this is cheating, but I'm just mentioning these things to show, to give it a basis of an understanding of the activities of devotional service. Because when you come to the temple, then you see the devotees dressed in certain kind of clothes, and they're marking their forehead, and they have this funny thing in the back of the head, and they're rising early and worshipping the deity, putting flowers on the Lord, offering the foodstuffs there to the Lord on the altar, and chanting Hare Krishna, playing kartals, drums, and having classes like we have. All this regulated activity, and someone may say, well, this is also ritualistic, it's also stereotyped, so mechanical. How can this be happiness? But the point is by doing these activities, we give up our obsessions with ourselves. And then this ananda, this spiritual pleasure, shines forth. It floods the consciousness of the devotee because he's focused on Krishna. So, someone may say, well, this all looks very strange. This bhakti-yoga, it all looks very... Well, like I said, of course we won't talk about it, but if we wanted to give an analysis of sex life, that also is very strange. Very strange activity when you, just in an analytical way, start to describe it. Very ridiculous activity, but, most of the world thinks it is very, very nice, very pleasurable. One gets happiness from it. So if you can't understand Krishna consciousness in any other way, you can use that as a reference. Why do we do all these strange things? Because there is spiritual bliss. But this is not, as I said, this is not happiness which is ultimately binding the consciousness to the body. Rather, Sri Krishna says, it is the regulative principles of freedom from the body. The more devotional service we perform, more bhakti-yoga we engage in, then the more liberated we become from the bodily conception and mental conception and intellectual conception. And the more we enter into this ananda, transcendental happiness of association with Krishna. Actually, this is the essential point. Bhakti-yoga simply means to associate with Krishna. So we can get immediately, everyone, direct association with Sri Krishna through his holy name. This is the fundamental process in Bhakti Yoga. By chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Then one is associating directly with Krishna, and that's why the chanting of Hare Krishna is blissful. And the more we associate with the holy name, the more bliss we experience. And we find the more fixed our consciousness becomes in Krishna. Then naturally we remember Krishna. The more we chant, naturally we remember Krishna more and more and more. And so then the perfection is to remember Krishna 24 hours a day, so that even at the time of death of this body we remember Krishna and we go to Sri Krishna. So the message of this verse is very, very nice. The verse we read for the class. That by this simple process of bhakti yoga, one attains everything that is to be attained in the Vedas. What is to be attained in the Vedas? As I said, that Jiva Goswami has shown by citing this one verse. You understand the supreme tattva, the supreme truth, depending on the path you've taken, either as Brahman, as Paramatma, or if one is a devotee, as Bhagavan, Sri Krishna. So, but Brahman and Paramatma is included in Bhagavan. So the devotee gets everything. And moreover, Krishna concludes, simply by performing devotional service, he attains all those, and at the end he reaches the supreme eternal abode. So this supreme eternal abode means Goloka Vrindavan, that eternal state of consciousness. Actually, it's a state of consciousness where Krishna eternally resides with his devotees and engages in his lila, his transcendental pastimes with them. So this Goloka consciousness, entering into Goloka, that is not open to the karmis and jnanis. That is not found in Brahman, Paramatma realization. So therefore Krishna is saying, the devotee gets everything karmis and jnanis get, but at the end they attain the eternal supreme abode. Hare Krishna. So, would there be, by chance, any question? No?
By your opinion, what difference between material energies, energy that can be noticed in material world, and eternal energies, as intuition, what kind of psychological phenomena, dreams, and so on? What difference? Is there any difference? If it's not,
Well, what you're describing, psychological phenomena. Of course, the basis of it is consciousness, and consciousness is eternal. But that particular phenomena, dreaming and so on, that is also temporary, that is also not eternal. These are some temporary activities of consciousness. So, the difference between spirit and matter is that, in terms of what I was saying, spirit is Sat Chit Ananda, eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss, whereas matter, material forms, are Asat, they're temporary, they're Achit, full of ignorance, and Nirananda, they're full of suffering. Like this body. This body is temporary, it is a place of ignorance, and it is a place of suffering. So now our experience in this present state of existence is naturally a combination of both spiritual and material existences. In other words, the consciousness, the means of perception, that is spiritual. So if you want to know, what is this spiritual phenomena? What is spiritual existence? Simply study consciousness. That is spiritual. But the problem is that the consciousness, it's a media of perception, but it's tuned in to this material existence entirely. In other words, all we're perceiving with this consciousness is that which is temporary, that which is full of ignorance, and that which is full of suffering.
the material is full of
Yes.
suffering.
Yeah.
These two doors, Krishna and Rama, they are
This is
material.
Sri Sri Gaurnitai.
They are material.
No, they're spiritual. But you're seeing them material. It's like looking at a clock. You see? Is there a clock in this? Anyone? No? No, no clock. All right. If you have a watch, you have a watch on?
No.
No. We know. So then, okay, anyway, you know what a clock looks like. So you can just imagine a clock on the wall. So now when you look at a clock, what do you look at? Why do you look at a clock? What do you want to see there? You could tell me. No, let's help the others understand. What do we look at when we look at a clock?
We look at the moment, kind of the moment that we call.
No, that's not what you look at.
Time.
Time, yes. You look at time. So Krishna says, Kalos means how time is moving. So, now the clock is made from metal and glass, material things. But when you look at the clock, you're not appreciating the metal and glass. That's not why you look at it. You look at time, and time is a feature of God. So it is a matter of education. When you're a child, and you don't know how to read the numbers on the clock, you don't know what this means when the hands are like that, then you only see the metal and glass. You just say, oh, this is something, some material object. But after you've been instructed, after you've learned, when the big hand is on 12 and the little hand is on 3, it's 3 o'clock. Then you see that clock in a completely different way. And you don't care. The clock can be made out of metal, glass, or plastic, or wood, or whatever. But that's not of interest to you. You're looking at time. So similarly, the deity form of Krishna, or here, Sri Sri Gaura-Nitai, when one's eyes are ignorant, then one sees, oh, this is just made from wood or metal. But when one is trained in bhakti-yoga, one sees, no, this is the form of the Lord. The Lord's form is absolute, and He has appeared in this way. Now the reference point may be, just like with a clock. Reference point is some material arrangement. So here, reference point may be that we have some forms which are made from wood. That's the reference point, because our eyes only see matter. So in order to become focused on the form, we first fix our eyes on this perceivable, these objects. But then when one's consciousness has been trained to understand exactly who is here, this is Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. They have appeared in this way. Now we can only get that appreciation by service. There is a process of what is called archana, service to the deity, service to the form of the Lord. And this is prescribed in the Vedic scriptures, Pancharatric scriptures. So it's a kind of service, a meditation through service on the form of the Lord. And when one practices this, then one easily realizes that this is a form of consciousness. This is Krishna's absolute form. When one realizes this form, then he sees this form everywhere. He sees on the altar, but when he leaves the altar room, the form is there in his consciousness. He sees everything in terms of the form of Krishna. So he's always Krishna conscious.
If you take this figures, I know this is a little bit sensitive to people who are Krishna conscious, and I'm pointing to this Krishna and Rama, but I don't have any exact intention.
I understand.
But if you look at these two figures, these two pictures, what may be exactly this way that we should identify them with Krishna or Rama? Must they be yellow or brown?
They should not be according to our mental speculation.
Yeah.
You see, that God has unlimited forms. He appears in so many different ways and colors and so on. And if you travel around the ISKCON temples, you'll see so many different deity forms worshipped on the altar. And if you go to India, you'll see so many more. There are literally hundreds of thousands of temples. And they worship Krishna in so many different forms.
Why did I go
So the forms are unlimited, but They have to be authorized at the same time.
But in the same time, if you can take any kind of model, you can identify with Krishna or another artist like Brahma, then we can see each of us that we meet.
Yes.
Okay? Part of Krishna or part of Brahma.
Yes, that's complete Krishna consciousness. But for this, the consciousness has to be pure. You know, just like in Australia, Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, he went to one Franciscan monastery, Catholic followers of St. Francis of Assisi. And this question was put to him, that St. Francis, he saw all living entities as his brothers and sisters. He addressed them as his brothers and sisters because all are children of God, whether they be not only human beings, but plants or trees, birds, animals. So he was addressing them in that way, as brother and sister. So the question was to Srila Prabhupada, so what do you think about this? And Prabhupada said, this is complete Krishna consciousness. This is full Krishna consciousness. To see all living entities as part and parcel of Krishna. But, you know, then again, if at the same time the so-called followers of St. Francis are indiscriminately killing and eating animals, I mean, St. Francis himself was vegetarian, but his modern followers are not. So they may have, you know, this theoretical appreciation of St. Francis's vision, but they themselves are not putting it into practice. So how can they actually have this vision themselves? It's not so cheap. So the consciousness has to be reformed, and that's the reason for this Krishna consciousness. What you're saying, there's validity in it. There's a kind of devotee called Kanishta Adhikari, means beginning devotee. Then he may think that God is only there in these forms. But the more advanced devotee, he of course, God is there, but he sees God everywhere else too. Then there's wrathful atheists who say God is everywhere except there. There's like a group in India called Arya Samaj. Prabhupada was arguing with such a person from this group. And Srila Prabhupada was asking, so where is God? He said, everywhere. He said, so is he there, the deity? No. So if you say God is everywhere, how can you deny he's not there? He's there. And he's especially there. Just like water is everywhere also. Water is everywhere. Water is in all, any scientist will tell you that you can find traces of water everywhere. But if you want to drink, you have to go to the faucet and open it and fill your glass, then you can drink. Similarly, God is everywhere, but if you want to see him and worship him and have a relationship with him, he's especially appearing for you on the altar. And then by establishing a relationship with deity on the altar, gradually you can understand how God is everywhere and see him in all living entities. That's the advanced platform. But it's not cheap, you know, just to say, yeah, God is everywhere, and then go out into the world and engage in animalistic sense gratification. This is hypocrisy. Any other questions? Right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.